Hi, thank you for joining us today. I'm Jasmine, and I'm a member of Teens for Sharks.
I'm Gabe, the founder of Beachlex, and we are high school students.
Today we'll start with your background and then transition into what services and resources you provide, as well as your overall message.
So can you please start by introducing yourself and telling us about your educational and/or personal background?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on, Gabe and Jasmine. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here today and talk to you guys. My name is Caitlin McCall. I am the founder of EcoConscious Diver, and it's a marine conservation education platform. So my background is actually pretty interesting because my first career and actually my bachelor's degree was in advertising and communication studies. So that's completely different than marine conservation, but I did start diving when I was about 12. So that's always kind of been in the background there. After college, I had a couple of jobs at magazines, and I just didn't really feel fulfilled, and I couldn't figure out why. So I'd always wanted to live abroad. So I cooked up a plan to go over to Australia, and then I ended up going to New Zealand too. But I got my dive master certification before I went there so that I could work as a dive master. And I just fell in love with the ocean. I'm originally from Texas, and so after my big adventure, I went back to Texas, and I just missed the ocean so much. I realized I didn't want to live away from it. So I ended up in Key West, Florida, and I got a marine environmental technology degree there. And I know that seems kind of random, but I'd already been, working dive jobs, and I heard about this program. It was really, really different and special. It had research diving courses. So you learn about the reef, and then you go right out onto it and see exactly what you're learning about. It was so unique. And I just felt a calling to do it. And ever since then, I haven't really looked back. I kind of combined my background in advertising and communications with marine conservation. So that's how EcoConscious Diver was born. So I have a podcast, and I have online courses and a lot of other stuff going on there.
What inspired you to start the Eco-Conscious Diver community, and what were the steps did you do to get your platform off the ground?
So I kind of realized really quickly working in the Florida Keys that not a lot of divers or dive professionals get enough education when it comes to the marine environment in general. And I feel like that leads to the lack of conservation that happens within the dive community. And it's really, a lost kind of opportunity there, because obviously divers are ocean lovers. They're people who already love the ocean. And so if you can take these people that already love it and teach them even more about the ocean, and then in turn how to conserve it, then it's just a win all around. And specifically dive instructors and stuff, I realized people would ask questions on the boat about different types of coral or fish. Why are those parrotfish munching on the coral? Just simple questions, and people didn't know the answers. And I was like, this is crazy. All these people are out on the water every day. So that was really the motivation behind it, was to find a space for divers to learn more. And probably the first step I took was creating my Instagram account, Instagram and Facebook, for myself, which was Caitlin McCall. And then once that kind of got off the ground, then I started EcoConscious Diver, which I gave it its own Instagram and Facebook and website, really to give it credibility, and because I hope it grows. Right now it's only me, so I'm a solopreneur, but I'm really hoping that this has legs, and maybe I can have other instructors. I do have my first co-writer for an online course, so that's exciting. And so, it's still really new. EcoConscious Diver launched just over a year ago. And it's grown so much. We have, over 5,000 listeners on the podcast. And we're getting a lot of traction on the website. So it's really exciting to see it grow.
Wow, that's really cool. You guys seem to be expanding pretty quickly. So we were just wondering what the main goals of the eco-conscious diver community were and who you aim your message towards.
Really, it's the marine conservation education. I believe that the more you teach people about the ocean, the more they'll be willing to help protect it. And I really think that's the big gap we have with conservation is education, because people really want to do good. I think they just don't have the resources and education to know what to do or how to change their lifestyle. So that's the main mission. Um, Obviously, my main target is going to be scuba divers, recreational and professional. And but really, my online course, you don't have to be a scuba diver to take a complete introduction to marine conservation. So that one you can learn online from home. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to make sure I could reach people that weren't scuba divers too.
That's so cool. What have you been able to accomplish so far, and what have you done to accomplish these goals?
I'd say, in 2020, that was the year that I went full time into this. And so the podcast was a big goal of mine. And I was pretty nervous about it. I don't know. I mean, just kind of putting yourself out there and being like, do I have enough to say that people are going to be interested in listening to this? But it's gotten really good feedback, and I'm happy I put myself out there like that. And also the 2 online courses. So now we've got a complete introduction to marine conservation, and then also EcoConscious underwater photography, which kind of build on each other if you're interested in underwater photography. And what else? There's so many free resources now on the website. That's something that I really wanted to build on. Oh, and I started an in-person event too. That's here local, where everyone's diving local at the moment. So this is local to South Florida and Fort Lauderdale, where we talk about the coral reefs, and then we go out and do 2 dives on the reef here too.
That's really cool. So talking more about these resources that you offer online, we were just wondering if you could go into them in slightly more detail and talk about what you provide and where people can get involved and take advantage of these opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. So I do have a whole page of free resources. One is, this is the most common question I get, so I created it into a guide. It's all about how to become a scientific diver. So many people want to do that, and there is a website for it, but they don't do a very good job of explaining it, and it's very confusing online. So I created a guide that kind of goes through exactly how you can become a scientific diver, what colleges offer the certification, that sort of thing. I also created a guide for photographing movement in underwater photography. This one's interesting because probably, the second thing that people do after just taking still photos is they're trying to photograph sharks, turtles, all the big exciting things that you see underwater. And so I wanted to help people learn how to do that. I also have log pages that are eco-conscious. So they actually help you to remember some eco-conscious diving high points, like, are you wearing, eco-conscious sunscreen, reef safe sunscreen? What type of corals did you see? What type of fish did you see? And it helps you to kind of go home and just look that stuff up right when you get done with the dive. And that's honestly how I first started learning about the marine environment, was just looking things up after dives. It's like, what is that? And then lastly, I have a marine conservation challenge. It's a 5-day challenge, and it just comes straight to your email inbox. And it has workshops that kind of take you through exactly breaking down, what is your motivation behind marine conservation? What are some easy steps that you can take to get started? Because I feel like a lot of people just don't know what they can do or what role they can take in this community. So it kind of helps them do that. Just really, the 2 online courses are great right now, because I know a lot of people aren't able to travel and dive. So that's why I put those together, and they can learn from anywhere at their own pace. And that's on the website at www.eco-consciousdiver.com/online-learning.
I also noticed that you offer some monthly dive events. What's your favorite event that you have, and do you have any upcoming events?
So right now I just have one event. It's called Marine Conservation and Coral Reefs. And it's really fun. We have a classroom session before lunch where we go through marine conservation and then we talk all about coral reefs. I like to bring it really specific to the Florida Reef since that's what we're diving. We break for lunch and then the afternoon we do 2 reef dives and we'll actually identify a lot of the stuff like on corals. Is it bleached? Is it recently killed coral? You know, what are the different types of corals? I'll talk about all the different things that we learned about in the course in the morning. So it's really hands-on. And that's every second Saturday of the month. So that's ongoing. I do have a dream this year to do a little short dive weekend in the Bahamas every couple of months. So here in Fort Lauderdale, we have a little ferry that goes right across the Bahamas. It's only an hour and a half, and I really want to do a shark ecology lab. It would be like a 3-day weekend with, yeah, I know, with a certification. Right now, as far as I know, the Bahamas are still closed to people because of the coronavirus, but I'm hoping that it will open up in the next couple of months and I can do that.
Wow, that sounds really amazing. That sounds like it would be a really interesting trip. So shifting gears a little, we were wondering if you had encountered any hardships in your creation of the eco-conscious diver community and how you got around them.
Hardships. I think always whenever you're starting a business, it's the money portion, getting it off the ground. And I would just encourage anyone to, keep your full-time job until it's making a certain amount of money, which is what I did. And then even when I went, I say full-time, I still was doing contract work and marketing on the side to kind of supplement my income until it got to the point where it was like full-time income. Because at the end of the day, you have to support yourself. You have to pay your rent. So, but I'd say that if you can find a way to do better in the world and use that as your work, then you're much better off, and it's worth it, to follow your dreams and doing something like that that's different, than just building someone else's dreams.
Where do you see your company in a couple of years, and what are your goals for the future?
Honestly, I mean, the next part I'd say is I do want to bring a little bit of my marketing knowledge to the dive industry into marine conservation. I get so many people asking me about digital marketing, which is interesting. It's kind of, there's kind of 2 sides to what I do. And so, if I can teach people about digital marketing and using that to get this message out, I feel like that can only be a good thing. Or conscious products or anything like that. So I think I will do a course on that. I'd also really like to get some travel going. In the next couple of years, hopefully when travel opens back up, I'd really like to do like a 7-day conservation workshop where it would be kind of people that are, transitioning into marine conservation, scientific diving, and each day we would do something different. Like we might do lionfish hunting one day, take a trip to the landfill another day and learn all about plastics and all that sort of thing. And then, surveys, fish surveys, coral surveys, hopefully do a little coral restoration. So I am in talks with a dive shop to do that as soon as we humanly possibly can. So that's on the horizon soon.
So we were wondering if you had any suggestions about how people can be more eco-conscious when diving.
Yeah, of course. I'd say the number one thing is work on your buoyancy. Try not to go directly over coral. And if you do, try to stay horizontal, make sure none of your equipment is dragging. One of the main things I see people doing that they don't realize is they have, equipment that's just dragging across the reef while they're going and they don't realize it. So it's keeping everything nice and tight, making sure you're wearing reef safe sunscreen. If you have to wear sunscreen, and if not, just covering up on the boat and not even wearing sunscreen is probably the best option if you can. Of course, you don't want to get a sunburn. you know, there's so many other things. I think like bringing a reusable water bottle on the boat. So many operations are still using plastic cups, which is crazy because we're like taking people out on the reef. So just do your part and bring a reusable water bottle so you're not using those. Telling other people about all of this stuff and what you've learned whenever you're on dive trips. That's a huge one.
That's awesome. That's such a good suggestion too, because a lot of people don't know like what they're doing, especially like on the beach and stuff. So those are really good suggestions. Are there any side projects that you're working on to help the ocean further, like other than your company, something like small or anything that you're doing separately?
I mean, personally, I'm working full time on this. So I don't have that much extra time to like take on other product or other projects. I have joined a women's organization here in Fort Lauderdale, and we do a lot of beach pickups, trash pickups. So I'm excited about that.
That's great. So we have one more question. What advice would you give to someone who would want to work in and get involved with marine conservation?
I know that a lot of people say that there is not money to be made in marine conservation and marine biology. And I want to say that's completely not true. Um, you know, the way the system and money works is that if you create value, you're rewarded for that, regardless of, you know, what industry you're in. So you always want to look to create the most value you can. Um, and you know, follow what you love. Combine something else that you love with marine conservation. I'd say that's the best route to be successful in it. I do love communications, and so it's easy for me to combine the two, you know. But if you're a numbers person, I always say, you know, marine conservation nonprofits need accountants. They need literally everything you can think of under the sun that businesses need, marine conservation needs, and there's organizations that need those people. So just, you know, follow your heart and try to take an inventory of, you know, what you're good at and how you can apply that towards marine conservation. So I guarantee you we can use your skills.
So that's all of the questions we have for you today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Like you're doing such a good thing, and I'm so proud of you because a lot of people have such a hard time putting themselves out there, and I think what you're doing is really amazing.
Thank you. Well, the universe rewards the bold, so just always remember that. If you have if you have ideas, you know, put them out there. There's no time like the present. And I also want to say that if anyone is listening to this and they have questions, I'm always available via email for mentorship or just answering questions anyone has. So feel free to reach out.